Let's take a look at this program, parameter passing. In this program, three variables are declared. A1, an int, A2, an integer object from the Java API, and A3, a mutable integer object. The mutable integer class has a single private instance variable, value, a constructor, a method that updates the state of the class called setValue, and a toString method. Keep this in mind as we hand trace because we'll be calling these methods from the parameter passing class. Let's create the hand tracing table for the main method. Once again, we label this as the main method. We have our line numbers and our variables. So line 6, the int variable gets a value of 123. And we can enter that directly into the table. For objects, we need a way to keep track of the reference stored for the variable and the state of the object under reference. One way to do this is to draw a box that represents the object somewhere in memory, and a reference to it can be an arrow shown in our table. So on line 7, we're creating an integer object, that's A2, and it's going to have a state value of 123. So we'll represent its state there. If you have a lot of objects, you might want to identify what type it is, and you can just make a note of that. So we'll put in our table here, we can just say that this is just going to be a reference. Line 8 is where we declare A3 of type mutable integer. So once again, we can create our mutable integer object somewhere in memory, identify it, and show that we have a reference to it. Line 10 is the call to the void method change values. So we'll add a frame for the change values method. We're going to follow the flow of execution as it moves from line 10 with the method call down to line 13. On line 13, the parameters are F1, F2, and F3. So let's add those into our table for the change values frame. The parameter F1 gets a copy of whatever value is stored at A1. A1 has a value of 123, so that gets copied over to F1. F2 gets a copy of whatever was in A2. A2 is a reference to our integer in memory, so we can indicate that as a reference here as well. Likewise, the argument A3, which is a reference to our mutable integer in memory, a copy of that reference comes over to our method call. Line 15 updates the value of F1 to 999. Things start to get more interesting when we hit line 16. Line 16 creates a new integer object. So let's create a new integer object in memory. It's going to give it a state value of 321. So this is of type integer. And so we're going to have line 16, a new reference for F2. Line 17 is a call to the setValues method of the mutable integer class. Recall that the setValue method updates the state of the mutable integer object to whatever argument is passed to it. On line 17, the argument 321 is passed to the setValues method. Therefore, the state changes to 321. The method has completed its execution, so flow of control will now return back to the main method at line 10. At this point, the frame for the change values method is out of scope. So let's cross this out. Along with that, we're going to cross off any objects that have only references from the change values method. Look at what's left and determine what integer values are represented by the variables A1, A2, and A3.